I can actually tell with all my clients when I'm looking over their weight loss charts and I can see their daily weigh-ins and I'm making my comparisons week to week and I'm trying to pick out the trend to see, are we on track for this person's goal? I can see if they've been consistent with their water or not based on their scale readings. A lot of people wouldn't know. Dude, that's delicious. Oh, excuse me, I'm going to burp. Why you should drink water as I'm chugging Coke Zero. And there's water in Coke Zero. It's mostly water, right? Water with a little bit of caffeine and some delicious sweetener and flavoring. It does, funny enough, the coffee, tea, even alcohol, pops, sodas, as they say in different places, they all contribute to hydration. A lot of people think it's like, no, plain water and then these. It's like, and everything that's not plain water. It's like, no, it's all still fluids that contribute to hydration status. So it all matters. That being said, I am going to talk about water. Super sexy topic, right? Water is actually not sexy. Super boring. In fact, it's so boring that most people don't bother drinking it at all. And, or they opt for, like what I'm drinking over here, Coke Zero. I'll have the odd Coke Zero here and there. It's a nice little treat. But people should be drinking water. And I help all my clients with strategies on how to drink more water. But it's hard sometimes because they don't understand why they should be drinking water. They're like, yeah, I guess like people tell me it's healthy. Like I know I should drink it. I don't really know why I should drink it, but I know I should drink it. And if you know you should drink it, but you don't know why, it's not very motivating. Like that isn't going to do it. You know what I mean? So especially when you consider that plain water, there's nothing really exciting about it. So if you can understand why it's important, then it's a lot more motivating to be consistent with it. That's what I find. So I explain a lot of this stuff that I'm going to go over here to my clients when they're struggling to make water a priority or they're just not making it consistent. Then I'm like, let's talk about why we want to do this as opposed to like, yeah, drink more water. It's good for you. That's not going to do it. It wouldn't do it for me. Like, I don't know, maybe it turns other people on, but that's not going to do it for me. And I don't think it does it for most people. So I think you have to understand, you got to understand the why, the mechanisms behind it, and specifically the why as it relates to the goals that you're going after. If you can figure out, or if you can understand the function of water in the use case that it serves relative to the thing that you're trying to get, you'll be like, oh, that makes way more sense to me. I should drink water because it helps me get this thing I want. If you can do that, you'll be way more motivated to just drink water. Okay, so that's what we're going to go through. We're going to go through, how many of these things do I got? I got like 4 things here. So I'm going to go through that here. The first one, it's good for you, what I was basically just saying. And this is important to understand, but it's important to understand too that while it's good for you, it is healthy for you to be, appropriately hydrated. I just want to like reiterate what I just said, that it's not enough to actually make it a lifestyle change and be consistently hydrated, but we should still understand it nonetheless. So it's good for you. Why is it good for you? So it's going to support like major organ function. Like it's going to be good for your heart. It's going to be good for your brain. It's going to be good for your skin. A lot of people forget that one. Because like, especially as you age, skin is one visually that definitely looks older as you get older, and that's normal, and that's supposed to happen. But we can age a lot more gracefully if we're appropriately hydrated. It helps with energy, helps with liver function, helps with digestion, helps with detoxification. That helps with the aging process as well. All of these do. But your body's always going through detoxification processes because whether you like it or not, and you're the most healthy person in the world, you are going to be exposed to toxic environments. And that's life. Life is toxic. Life is a slow death. Sorry to say, but you're going to be exposed to these things. So water does help with supporting detoxification processes in your body. So understanding that is good, but also understanding and admitting that that is not enough to make you consistent with something like this. Definitely not enough to make me consistent with it. I want to understand, why does this matter with my specific goal? And sure, general health is one of my goals, but it's just not enough. So it gets me to number 2 here. Specifically, this is important even more so as it relates to someone on a weight loss journey. I work primarily with parents. I work primarily with parents specifically, that are trying to lose weight. And they want to lose weight for a number of different reasons. But knowing that they want to lose weight, it's important to understand why water is important for this outcome, for this goal. Okay. Number 2, water makes scale readings, our body weight scale. It makes scale readings a lot more accurate. The way that I coach clients for weight, when I get them to weigh in, is I will get them to weigh in every single day. For a lot of people that don't regularly weigh themselves, or if they have some emotional baggage around the scale, totally understand that, but that can freak them out and be like, oh my goodness, I got to go on the scale every day. It's going to be up some days. It's going to be down. It's going to be up. It's going to be up again. It's going to be flat. I'm going to be so frustrated. This sucks. I'm going to see a number I don't want to see. That's normal. That's normal. And I help coach people through that to manage that in a healthy way. But that being said, we weigh in daily because it gives us a better trend every week and every month when we are comparing our weigh-ins. If we weigh in once a week, the problem with that is that we are now just weighing in, we now just have one data point a week to compare with one data point on the week prior, which was taken on a snapshot in time that is influenced by a number of factors that isn't just fat loss, right? If we're weighing in to lose weight, we're doing so not just to lose weight, but to specifically lose body fat, right? And we know that if we're weighing in and we're using the scale as one of the tools to measure progress for fat loss, then we know that weight loss doesn't just mean fat loss. Weight loss means fat loss plus other things, right? It measures a ton of things. So the scale is measuring, it's measuring the weight of your bones, your muscle, which will change. Bones don't change that much, but muscle will change here and there. Hydration status, cortisol fluctuations, all hormone fluctuations like estrogen as well. Stress will affect it, salt, hydration status, how many carbohydrates you're having, the type of carbohydrates you're having, digestion, so how fast you're pooping and how much you're pooping, and a ton of things. So it's not, fat, right? So it's everything. It's not just fat. So it's important to understand that, and that's why we weigh in daily, because we know that the scale is going to fluctuate because it's affected by so many of these variables. So when we weigh in each day, we understand that these are not gospel. We don't put too much stock in the daily weigh-ins. We put more stock into the weekly trends that the daily weigh-ins show. Okay. And that is very, very important to understand. It also helps psychologically when we're doing this, because some days it'll be high, some days it'll be flat for a while. There's a lot of things that affect this. So how water affects this is how water influences this is when I can actually tell with all my clients, when I'm looking over their weight loss charts and I can see their daily weigh-ins and I'm making my comparisons week to week and I'm trying to pick out the trend to see, are we on track for this person's goal? I can see if they've been consistent with their water or not based on their scale readings. A lot of people wouldn't know. And the reason for that is because for someone who's inconsistent with their water, what I will see is very large valleys and very large spikes in their weigh-ins. And this is because water affects the scale acutely. And what I mean by that is it affects it very quickly in the short term. Fat is a slow process. It's a slow burn, right? Water, we can change our water weight in minutes, hours, partial days, very acute. So a specific example of this is if I decide to drink a ton of water today and don't change anything else, I would be setting myself up to see a much lower scale reading, not necessarily help me burn fat, right? Because it's not going to have a direct influence on that. But the scale reading itself is much more likely to be closer to my scale reading yesterday prior. There'll be less deviation between that. If I decide to not drink any more water for the rest of today and then weigh in tomorrow, it would actually be much more likely that I see a large spike and a much larger deviation from my scale number yesterday. That doesn't always happen, but that's a lot more likely to happen. And why that happens is because of how water acts on the body. So think of it like this. If I drink a lot of water, my body responds by regularly excreting water, going to the washroom regularly. That makes sense. Because I'm having a large influx of water coming in, the body goes, cool, we don't need to store any of this. We can get rid of this on a regular, frequent basis because we got lots coming in. The opposite is also true in the sense of if I'm withholding water and if I'm not drinking enough water and it's a lot lower and I'm dehydrated, then what my body does is it responds by going, oh no, I'm not getting enough water coming in. So I'm going to need a certain amount of water for my regular bodily processes and functions. So I'm just going to retain and I'm going to store and hold as much water as I can. And that, excuse me, that can reflect on the scale with these large scale spikes. So water is important from this sense of making the scale readings more accurate and so that we can see more accurate daily trends. Well, we know that the scale goes up and down. That is normal and that's healthy. The big ups and the big downs are a lot harder to actually pull weekly trends from. On top of that, they're also emotionally exhausting, especially if you're someone who has some emotional baggage around the scale, which is common and very understandable. Usually it comes from a number of things, but one of them is just not understanding actually how to use the scale in a way that it's meant to be used. And not understanding how certain things act on the scale, such as water. So it's already going to be emotionally exhausting going through those large spikes. You're not going to be able to pull accurate trends from it week to week and make, reasonably standardized trends, every 7, 10, 14 days and actually see if you're making, progress or not. So then the tool of the scale isn't even that useful anymore. So it just becomes unhelpful. And how we can actually make it more helpful is just make sure our water's up. So hopefully that explains how water affects the scale. I can always, I was saying how I can see my clients, how consistent they are with their water intake based on their scale readings. And like the ones who are inconsistent, right? Big spikes, big whatever, big spikes, big valleys. But the inverse is true as well, where it's like I can tell when they're being consistent because they still have ups and downs. That's very, very normal when you're weighing in daily, right? But they will, it'll be less deviation. So the ups and downs are a lot smaller. They're not as big. So that's important to understand. That is a big function of water on weight loss and our journey of weight loss, specifically when we're using the scale to measure that. Number 3, water helps us look and feel leaner. This is not the end all be all. Looking and feeling leaner isn't the end all be all, but it is important and it does feel good. So this kind of piggybacks a bit on how I was saying like the water will affect the scale because of, water retention happening as a response from dehydration and inadequate water intake. So when we are drinking consistent water regularly, doesn't need to be this perfect amount or anything, but we're in the range of our normal, regular water consumption day to day, then we will not see water retention to a level that's visually obvious. What I mean by that is like if we are retaining water, you'll be puffy around the skin. Your body will retain water subcutaneously just under the skin. And that's where you can you could look at your arms, ankles, around the belly, face even sometimes. This is different for everybody, but you can look fatter. But your body fat percentage actually didn't change. You just had a very acute change in hydration because your water intake just went down very quickly. So if we can keep our water intake up, we can keep the water flushing from our body regularly, and our skin is healthy and our body doesn't need to store or retain any excess water because we have enough coming in. So another note on that is, like, a lot of people will often, when they are, and this does depend on the person. So this isn't generalized to everyone, but generally speaking, for most people, especially if they're eating reasonably healthy, if someone has a situation where they don't have any other underlying conditions or medications that would affect this or anything, they have a situation where they do have, some swelling, just mild swelling, or they're a little bit puffy and they're dehydrated. A lot of people would chalk that up to, like, I'm eating too much salt. And I don't agree with this in most cases. In most cases, it's not too much salt. They just lack water. It's actually just not enough water. Again, someone, like, if assuming they're eating healthy, they're probably not overeating salt in most cases. It's usually that they're just not, they just need to bring up their water for the amount of salt that they're eating. The ratio of salt to water is just inappropriate. They need to bring their water back up and they'll be good. This does affect blood pressure, right? And if we're not drinking enough water, that does affect blood pressure. So that's one of the things that goes back to, like, the health effects of water, is making sure that we're drinking enough water does support healthy blood pressure and a healthy cardiovascular system. So, if we're retaining water because we're dehydrated, that will spike blood pressure. And in some people, that they're a lot more sensitive to that. And some people are more sensitive to salt. But really, I think instead of a first line of defense being decreasing salt intake for most people, they should just be focusing on eating generally healthier foods, so maybe not eating processed foods that are already super high in sodium, but salting your homemade meals, single ingredient whole foods, like, to taste, that's fine. Add salt to that, but bring up your water. Drink a lot more water and keep that regular system of flushing out your normal, the normal amount of water that you're drinking, that's going to help a lot more. And you'll look and you'll feel leaner because you won't have this, subcutaneous retention underneath your skin. Number 4, this is important to understand. Those are kind of like the 3 major ones, but number 4 is kind of a note on all the other ones. Is it's easy to obsess. This is just another thing for some people that is easy to obsess about. Especially if you're someone who overthinks or obsesses about the minute details, or you like black and white, and you struggle with nuance, then you may aim to be perfect on something like this, which literally does not exist. You will not be perfect. So when I make a recommendation to someone for how much water to drink, I give them a target of water to drink. Be like, hey, start here, see how you feel, go from there. But at the same time, I think when I give them a target, I like to also give a range. So if I was going to give someone 3 liters of water to start with, hey, aim for 3 liters of water. I'd also be like, just so you know, if you're close to 3 liters, that's fine. 2.5 liters, we can work with that most days. You go over that, you hit 3.5, 4 liters because you're outside, you have a physical job and you're sweating more or whatever it is. You may need a lot more than that. That's fine too. But there's going to be like a range there, and it may depend on the day, especially if your days are different as far as like physical requirements, then that's fine. The biggest thing here is not to aim for perfection, but to aim for consistency. So I know for me, I don't track my water specifically, but I know that I'm drinking around the same every single day, right? And some days are lower, some days are higher, but no days are really low. I'm always consistent. So I'm always in this range of, for me, which isn't a magical number, it just works for me in my life. And I know I would have drinking a ton more when I was tree planting outside for 12 hours a day in the hot sun. I would have drank way more. But for my life right now, what works for me is it's going to be between like 3.5 to 4.5 liters, somewhere in there. Sometimes I'm a little bit lower than that, but I'm never really outside that range very far, and I'm never super high above that. Generally around that range. So no matter what amount of water that's appropriate for you and the amount of water that you aim to drink, just aim to be consistent with it day to day, and just stay in that range. You don't have to be perfect hitting this exact number every single time. Some strategies that will help with drinking water. If you are someone that's like, man, water's boring, kind of sucks, I'd prefer pop. I totally understand because pop tastes better. But obviously, I'm kind of hoping that the things that I just explained hopefully help to motivate you to be more consistent with water. But none of those are really strategies. Those are just reasons to do it more. Here are some actual strategies. So first one, get a big jug. Now, it doesn't have to be one of those obnoxious jugs that you see meatheads carrying around at the gym. I have a 2-liter bottle, which isn't huge, but it's bigger than a small water bottle. And 2-liter stainless steel, all black jug. And if I'm going on the road or I'm driving for a while or I'm gone podcasting like I am right now and I'm gone for half the day, then I fill that up before I leave. And then if I need more, I'll figure it out. That kind of leads me to my second one, which would be if you're on the road, just stop and you don't have water. This is what I would do. And I've done this many, many times. I don't have water, don't have a place to fill it up. Stop at a gas station or a grocery store. But there's going to be plenty of gas stations or convenience stores, more than likely wherever you're traveling. Stop at one of those. Get a 1.5 liters. Usually I have the big-ish bottles there, not the little dinky 500 milliliters. Get the 1.5 liter water bottles, plastic water bottles, and that'll tide you over for the next little while. If you're on a big road trip, you're probably going to need a bunch of those. But that is a strategy that can help if you're on the road and you're not really sure what to do. The third one, as far as like actually drinking the water, because a lot of people will get to the afternoon or the evening and be like, dude, I'm way behind on my water. This sucks. Okay. And then they get chugging and maybe they don't even hit their target. Maybe they do, but then it's like 9, 10 p.m. and then they have to pee a bunch and then they wake up in the middle of the night to pee twice. And it's like, that's kind of annoying. So what's better is going to be just getting that in the morning. So front load your water in the AM. So when you wake up, chug your water. You might not even be thirsty, but chug a bunch. Go to the bathroom, do your thing, chug a bunch more. Make breakfast, chug a bunch of water while you're drinking breakfast. When you're done breakfast, chug a bunch more. It's not that you're constantly thinking about water, but you'll have a bunch of opportunities there to just put back a bunch of water. And then, a few hours later, chug a bunch of water back. You get to lunch, chug a bunch of water back. And then before you know it, you get to lunch and you're like, dude, I've already banged out like 1.5 liters. I've already banged out 2.5 liters, whatever it is for you. And that way you have most of your water in by that point and you can kind of cruise into the evening without trying to play catch up. Again, that's going to be a different amount for everybody depending on what their appropriate target is, right? The amount of water that they should be drinking. But if you can front load just more of it, you don't have to go crazy with it. But if you can just front load more of it in the morning, you don't have to play catch up later. It's way easier. And then the last one here, chug when you remember. You don't have to be carrying water with you everywhere you go like a crazy person. You just, when you remember, maybe it is 3-4 hours and you're like, oh my goodness, I haven't had water in a while. That's okay. You're going to be fine. But now that you've thought about it, go get some water, chug it back. Don't just sip on a little bit and relax because you're probably not going to drink a bunch more for another handful of hours. So chug back a bunch. Drink a few extra gulps more than you would normally drink. That's kind of my recommendations, okay? Don't sip because if you're relying on sipping, you're barely going to get 1 liter, 1.5 liters in by the end of the day. So, and then always come back to, you don't need to be perfect. Just be consistent. Doesn't need to be perfect. And you'll be fine. If you have any questions about this, let me know. You can always DM me on Instagram at I am Tim Walcott, or you can DM the show on Instagram at Stay Peaked. And I'll help you out with just giving you some like simplistic advice that again, it's simple, but it's easy and something tangible that you can aim for. And if you have any questions, you can always leave a comment below in the show. If you're watching on YouTube, leave that comment below and I'll reply to you there. Make sure to like this video. Make sure to subscribe to the channel. We're dropping episodes every single Wednesday and we got vlogs once a month. We're going to be coming out with guest episodes. We got lots of plans after that as well. So make sure you subscribe to the channel and you can get all that stuff to your homepage. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next week.